I'm going to try to do something this evening that I have never done before. I am Dr. Schwartz, one of the founders of the AccuWeight Loss program, not the inventor. The program has been done for over 1,000 years, and I was trained, as many of you know, by a brilliant Chinese-American physician. His name was Dr. Joseph Chu. He was a professor at UMDNJ. He had a private practice. He had a brilliant career, and sadly, his life was cut short. But I want to talk about me and how I got here. So I'm going to take you back to the 1940s. I was a 5th grade student. My teachers, had they had a choice, and I went to an all-boys school, my teachers, if they had a choice, did not want me in their classroom. Because in the 1940s, no one understood what we understand now. And that is, I was a student who had attention deficit hyperactive disorder, ADHD, but I was also dyslexic. I couldn't read. Kids used to laugh and giggle and make fun of me. They'd call me names. I could answer questions because I heard and understood everything. But when it came to any of those lessons that required reading or to write legibly, it was a huge problem for me. The story starts on a day when my 5th grade teacher was absent, and there was a substitute teacher. As I look back, I understand she was given instructions from my regular teacher not to call on me, since I couldn't read, because she didn't want me to be made fun of. The substitute teacher never saw the note or forgot, and during a lesson, she asked a question. I raised my hand, and she called on me. I can only tell you what happened. I read as though I had always read. I answered the question, and the class went on. The following day, my classroom teacher came in, regular teacher, and there was a note from the substitute saying, I don't understand. This Charles Schwartz, he did beautifully. And I'm sorry, I did call on him, and that's how I know, because I didn't read your note. The teacher saw that, had one of the students come up in front of the class, say, I'm going with Charles to the principal's office. And in those days, teachers left the room and under penalty of death, students were pretty understanding and didn't mess around, because the person that teacher put in charge was one of the teacher's pet, would write down the name, and the consequences were such that everything was fine. They took me down to the principal's office, and I'll never forget, I sat on this dark mahogany bench with slats behind it. The teacher went into the principal's office, and I remember you couldn't see through the door. There was a glass pane, but it was starburst and glazed, so you couldn't see through. And I heard the teacher and the principal conversing, couldn't understand the words. About 10 minutes later, the teacher said, "Wait here," left, and I sat there on that bench for an hour and a half or 2 hours until my parents arrived. My mother looked at me and said, "It doesn't end with you, always something." And she and my father went into the principal's office. You could hear the conversation. The meeting was over. My father said, "Come," and I followed them out to the car. My mother and father were in the front seat. I got into the back seat. My mother turned around and said, "It never ends with you, and this is unbelievable." And I said, "What did I do?" Because in my head, everything was fine. I realized what had happened the day before, but I didn't place any importance on it. And my father turned around and said, "You've been suspended from school. The teacher says that you have a criminal mind, that any student who for all his time in school, from kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, can fool everyone and make believe that he couldn't read." And the word he said the principal used was insidious, and that you cannot return to school until you have a psychiatric evaluation. My parents took me to a psychiatrist. I can't remember, it was either 3 or 4 sessions, and he had me sit in on the evaluation, which was, I'm not clear exactly what is going on, but I can tell you that your son is not lying. He was unable to read. He has improved dramatically. I tested him, and he still has some issues, but he now can read. And I'm writing a letter to the school telling them of my diagnosis, and they will have to reinstate him. I took the note. My parents drove me to school. The school was appalled, but because the psychiatrist was well known, they were forced to take me back in. But I will say this, all buildings that are public, the doors must open outward so that you can get locked out, but you cannot get locked in. They took my desk out into the hall, put me behind the door, and for the rest of the school year, I was not permitted into the classroom. I had to look through the... Sorry about that. I had to look through the crack in the wall, in the door, with kids running up and down, making faces at me and whatever. And I spent the rest of the year outside the classroom. I can't tell you what it did to me emotionally, but I can tell you that during those first 5 years before this particular incident, I had one or two friends, but not too many because of the fact that I was the dummy of the class. The fact that I wasn't stupid, the fact that I could do the arithmetic, the fact that I could answer questions orally didn't make any difference. And school went on that way. I graduated, went to high school, carried my reputation with me. One of the things that did help was that I was a terrific left-handed pitcher. And so even though I was the dummy, I could strike people out. And so in the makeup games, they wanted me because pretty much my team, if it had batters that were able to handle the other side, more often than not, my team would win. I have to tell you, school never got easier. I went to college, and I got my first job to help pay for my tuition. It was in a company called Smart and Thrifty. They were a women's clothing store, and I got a job as a ticketer. I had to put a garment into a machine, set the price, the color, the numbers, and I had a chart, and ticket garments and put them in a box. I was getting 75 cents an hour. I was low man on the totem pole. And so one of the things, because I was low man on the totem pole, I couldn't sit. The person above me could sit, but I had to stand. So here I would have to stand other people because of the pecking order. And I learned about the world of work and the world of a pecking order until I was fired. And the reason I was fired was back to the problem in 5th grade. I ticketed 500 dozen of particular garments that were being sent out all over the United States, and I ticketed them wrong. And because that was found out and it came back to me, I lost my job. And I lost my 75 cents an hour. A penny and 2/3 every minute. And I would think about those minutes standing there ticketing and whatever, because I hated the work, but I needed the cash. It helped pay for my food at school. I went to college. very naive. I wasn't very social because I had very limited experience. And in college, I was very excited. I made the basketball team. Not because I was good, but because in those days being 6'2" was tall, and the starting 7, there were 15 men on the basketball team, 7 played most of the time. The other 8 of us sat on the bench. But when we came in running and I could do layups and the drills before the game, and it was nice because I was part of something for the first time really in my life. I was graduated college, and during that period of time, I decided, because I had picked up in college several boys who were friends who would come to me for advice. And somehow or other, I seemed good at giving advice and developed a reputation. I decided I was going to become a social worker, and I was accepted at the School of Social Work and was in the literal first class of that School of Social Work. More and more, I learned that I had a skill. I could help people solve personal problems. I could help people calm down. I could help people change their lives. My mother, who watched over me until she passed, should rest in peace, was not happy with my being a social worker because the job that I took was in Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York, which was a very impoverished area. And the young people that I worked with in the agency had all kinds of issues and problems. And when in my second year, Christmas Eve, I was called by the police to come down because one of my charges had been arrested, my mother, and I have to admit, she pressured me, and I decided that I would become a psychologist. And I went back to school, got a second master's degree, and became a school psychologist. And after a few years, I opened a private practice. All of that occurred at a time when What we know technologically today did not really exist. And my first real job, for example, as a school psychologist was with the Newark Board of Education. And I was the first psychologist they hired who knew how to administer psychological testing. I opened private practice. And the practice grew. And then life changed. I found myself coming to work one day and there was a voice in my head. The voice said, "It's such a beautiful day. Why are you going to be sitting there, not having a good time and listening?" It was one of the most difficult sessions I had ever had. Trying to listen to my patient and to drown out that voice who kept bothering me and bothering me and bothering me. I had no idea that it's what nowadays we call burnout. I only knew that I was working, that I was unhappy, and I blossomed to almost 300 pounds. My wife, who's a wonderful woman, was urging me to lose weight. And so every day for lunch, I would take off 3 hours, go to a Chinese restaurant very near my office with a book. I would sit by the window, ordered steamed vegetables and a diet soda. Sometimes I'd have the tea in the restaurant, and I would sit there for hours reading, contemplating, escaping. When the world changed. I was confronted by a Chinese gentleman in scrubs who dropped his tray on my table, pointed at me and said, "Don't you do anything other than eat steamed vegetables?" He didn't understand that I kept the Jewish dietary laws, and so pretty much that's all I could have. And he started conversation. He was disheveled. I had no idea he had just done 36 hours of rounds. He was going home. He had come in regularly without my knowledge and seen me there every day. Took notice, decided to talk to me. And within a few minutes, he said to me, "You know something? You're not very happy." He had already introduced himself, and so he knew I was a psychologist. And he said, "You're coming to work for me in your spare time." And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "It'll be good for you." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how AccuWeight Loss began. He was doing a study on the hypothalamus, And when the study was complete, he said to me, look, those people had dramatic weight losses, and you're unhappy. And so I've decided that you're going to go into the weight loss business and open an office, and I'm going to be your medical director. And that's how AccuWeight Loss began. The practice grew. AccuWeight Loss grew. And Dr. Chu got ill. And he called me aside and he said to me, you've done well, and I've watched you. You know that AccuWeight Loss is not a diet. You know how it affects people's lives. And you, and I'm time sequencing because I missed this. If you remember, I said to you I was quite heavy. And when he talked me into opening an office, I'm not going to use his words. I'm going to modify them. He said, Dr. Schwartz, you cannot be an weight doctor. In 3 months on AccuWeight Loss, I lost 84 pounds. It was life-changing. I took back control of my life. I realized that food was there as my escape and my addiction. And he said to me before he passed, promise me that you'll carry on the tradition, that you will keep the costs under control, and that AccuWeight Loss will become a force in the world to make people responsible for themselves, to recognize they control themselves, and that's the only thing that they can control. And by taking back control of their lives, they will be happier with themselves. And when they become happier with themselves, it will feel so good that they will want to keep the weight off. And in feeling good about that, it's going to change the way they impact on other people. So that's where I am today. Talking to you and saying AccuWeight Loss is a weight loss program. It is not a diet. When you really do the program, you're going to change your lifestyle. But here's the problem. The problem is very little takes place in isolation. So when you come into the office, we always need to talk and see how the program impacts on your life. And as you lose the weight, begin to feel good about it. Take control of your life. Watch how taking control of your life changes your lifestyle. You will understand that together we can change the world. One person at a time, one day at a time. And when you realize that 85% of the people who go through the 3 levels, weight loss, stabilization, and maintenance, and do it properly, have dramatic lifestyle changes, and are keeping the weight off for over 7 years on average. Thank you for listening. If there are any comments, I hope you connect either in the office or by email. And now I'm going to open things up for questions. So Hans, let's open the door. And remember, I said if you have any questions, you can post them on Facebook. The first question comes from my daughter, and I have it here in front of me, and it kind of fits into what I've been talking about. A client asked this question of Barbara. I'm going to read it to you. Can you tell me about the mental and physical effects of transition versus cheating? In my head, I have the idea that some foods and times of eating are cheating until it's transition and beyond. It feels weird that there's like a date where so much can change. I would love to learn more about how our body and mind can or should handle this. The first thing that I need to say is AccuWeight Loss is a 3-phase program. And they really are separate and distinct, but they flow together. The first level is weight loss. And it is a powerful change that all of us must address. Think about this. For 9 months, you live in this cocoon, this watery cocoon, growing and developing inside your mother. She does everything for you. You do nothing for yourself. We're told, because of modern science, that somewhere around the 7th, 8th month, some level of awareness occurs, and we see this today with these commercials where pregnant women are taking themselves to concerts and doing different kinds of things to expose the fetus, this growing entity, to help nurture it and cause it to develop on a higher level. The 9th month arrives. The baby is thrust from 100% being taken care of to 0%. It's washed, it's wrapped. The mother, exhausted from the ordeal, falls asleep. The infant is taken away. And several hours later, the infant is returned. It begins to fuss, and a breast or a bottle is put in its mouth. Think about that. In the first few hours of life, food was used to comfort you. And to you women out there, I think the problem is even more difficult, because God made you the nurturers. It cries, you comfort. It cries, you comfort. You cry, you comfort. Food contains incredible power. And that is never going to change. So if we use food for comfort and we gain weight, it's because we're using the food for comfort and not for nourishment. And unless we change our lifestyle, the word obesity is going to spread more and more and more. Now let's come back to AccuWeight Loss. There are 1 million diets out there. If it's a real diet, it will work. There are millions of pills out there. Those of you who want instant gratification, go do it. If done properly, and remember, hidden always is with diet and exercise, you'll lose weight. AccuWeight Loss has been in business for over 22 years. People who go through our transition and maintenance program, on average, are keeping the weight off for 7 years, average, and it's growing. If you're not keeping the weight off, then you're losing weight, no matter what program you're doing, and you're going to play yo-yo for the rest of your lives. And as you get older, it's going to be more and more difficult. I want you to make yourselves important enough to recognize it's not what you eat, but how you eat. Now, transition/stabilization. For X number of days or weeks or months, you were on program. And if you were really scrupulous with the program, you achieved only fat and 15 pounds approximately every 30 days. And now you've reached your goal. How wonderful. And you've learned how not to eat. You've not learned how to eat. There is also something that is rarely talked about, and that's a concept called weight set point. If you've noticed, when you gained weight, it didn't happen in a straight line. It happened by steps. And each of those steps is a set point. When you lost your weight. It didn't go down to your final goal weight. It's pretty much set close to where you were when you came in. And it's going to take you approximately 2 months to reestablish in your body the new set point, which is your final goal weight. So how you eat is critical. There is a second point. Most of you have been involved in different stabilization maintenance programs. The reason they don't work is because human beings will not permit themselves to be told what to do. You'll do it for a week, you'll do it for 2 weeks, you'll do it for a month, and then you'll stop and you'll say, why am I not living the way I want to live? And the answer is because you're doing what someone else told you to do, and regardless of the fact that it may be working for you, you're resisting it. And number two, you want to do what you want to do, but you don't know how to do it. Dr. Chu, in his brilliance, said that you have all the tools. You just have to be taught how to use them, how to eat, not what to eat. And not only that, but everything has a cost. You have every right to say, I want to indulge. But if you indulge, are you willing and do you have a plan to pay the price? If not, the more you indulge, the more weight you're going to gain. And it becomes a vicious cycle. If we're not talking about it, we're not doing anything about it. And people, by their very nature, look at all these cell phones. Nobody talks anymore. I'll text you. I'll ask you a question by text. That's wonderful. It really is. But we're moving more and more towards isolation, and in that process of isolation, we're creating other issues in our lives. Suggestions for how we communicate better should come from you. Because each and every one of you has an idea, and when we make an amalgam of those ideas, we're going to have something that's more personal, more functional, and it's going to work. Question number 2. How do I find my pressure point behind my ear? You give your consultant your weight. There is a methodology that we've been using, but we've also patented what's now called the AcuPoint Finder. If used properly, you can have an 8-year-old help you put on your beads. Am I allowed black coffee, tea before 12 p.m.? All 0-calorie liquids. Anything 0-calorie is permitted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. May I use chicken or beef broth when making soup? No. If you think AccuWeight Loss is a diet, you have not fully understood. It is a chemical weight loss program that has a basis that works, and the greatest period of growth in a human being is during that first year. And what do you eat? Milk, fruits, and vegetables. And guess what this program has you eat? Milk, fruits, and vegetables. Why do some people come in and ask if they're really serious, could I, for extra flavor, have chicken or beef broth? Will it affect the program? Yes. Why are you doing it? Well, I have my reasons. Stick with the program. 15 pounds, only fat, total health every 30 days. Do I always have to have salad, or can I cook my vegetables? Here is a person who has not, it's wonderful that they've asked the question. If they're brand new, more power to them. But if they've been on the program, they have not been using their consultant. The consultants are there to answer your questions, to help you know what to do. And when you do it, and you get on that scale, and you see that your work has paid off, it incentivizes you to get it done. What are the benefits of the Qigong breathing? Simplistically, the Qigong breathing stops you, centers you, relaxes you, is a form of meditation. It even causes your body to increase its production of telomerase, which will affect the telomeres at the tips of your DNA in a positive way. And when you tell yourself to do the Qigong, because remember, you have 50 million things on your calendar. And who's got time to do the Qigong? Well, if I'm important enough in my life, then I will make time to do the Qigong. And I will then recognize that I am the only one who can control me. Because the Qigong will not get done unless I say, Charles, do it. Why is there no breakfast on the program? It's a simple question, and I'm going to answer it, but differently. Over 1,000 years ago, the Chinese who invented this program recognized that the body's need for energy was not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they also recognized that the body is affected by the circadian cycle. Modern science has learned something very interesting. And it's a craze in the diet industry. It's called intermittent fasting. The Chinese determined that the most important time for energy to be used is between 12 noon and 6 p.m. That's why there's no breakfast. But they stop you at 6 p.m. and you don't start again eating calories until 12 the following day. Amazing. The program incorporates something that is a craze today. It's called intermittent fasting. And guess what? It works. You're being fed what you're fed for the first year of your life, the greatest period of growth, and intermittent fasting. Gee, I guess AccuWeight Loss has structure behind it that is really scientifically meaningful. Will I gain back weight when I go back to regular eating? I don't know. I have no idea what regular eating is. I can tell you that I have a lifestyle. I can tell you that I have kept my weight off. But I'm going to give you one example. Everyone has their own concept of eating. Everyone is different. Are there similarities? Yes. Is there information that's important? Yes. Is food addictive? Yes. Are people addicted to food for comfort? Yes. Will you let yourself join into a self-created personal lifestyle program that suits you, that incorporates a lifestyle that helps you keep the weight off? If the answer is yes, start taking the risk and ask questions. Email me. Call me. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Take care.